So this is the brand new Jean Paul Gaultier Scandal Pour Homme Elixir, and I'm gonna try it out for the first time. And up in the air, this definitely opens up with a bit of cherry. So this is supposed to have 3 notes only: black cherry, patchouli at the heart of it, and tonka bean at the base. And yeah, pretty much right away you are getting a dose of what I think is a slightly sweet cherry. The tonka is supposed to be a base note, but I'm picking up on quite a bit of vanilla right away in the opening. So Jean Paul Gaultier Scandal Pour Homme Elixir, at least up in air, and at least based on my very first few sprays and first impression of it, opens up with the fruitiness and sweetness of cherry, and right behind it you got a bit of vanilla, and that vanilla definitely, at least a little bit, reminds me of the vanilla that you can find in the others. And with the others, I mean the OG Eau de Toilette and Scandal Pour Homme. Both of them have quite a bit of vanilla to them. But there's definitely a bit of a twist, at least up in the air, and I'm not sure if it's because that tonka is mixed with a bit of cherry, or if there's a bit of a twist to the tonka. So before we move on to what it smells like on skin, let's quickly talk about the price. So I paid about 115 bucks, that's around 86 pounds or so, for 50 ml of Scandal Pour Homme Elixir. Gaultier fragrances often and quite quickly end up on discounters, so I highly recommend you to have a proper look around if you're going to buy it. And before I spray it on skin, let's talk about this thing right here together with Scandal Pour Homme Elixir. Could it really be a coincidence that 2 quite new men's fragrances both have cherry in them? I mean, cherry in men's fragrances isn't really that common. And we recently got Powerfully from Armani, which is also a scent with cherry in it. So it might be that cherry is one of the sort of a trending notes of 2026. Since I know I'm gonna get the question if Scandal Pour Homme Elixir is similar to the new Strong With You Powerfully, I'm gonna make sure that I talk about that a bit later. But let's try it on skin as well. Okay, very intense. Very intense in the opening. So on skin, Scandal Pour Homme Elixir, it feels like the cherry is definitely more sort of a rounder and fuller and more juicy on skin. The tonka definitely cuts through in a lot more intense way on skin as well. I don't feel Scandal Pour Homme Elixir is a complex kind of scent, at least right away in the opening. The more Scandal Pour Homme Elixir moves away from the opening and into the heart of it, the more I feel basically that the whole thing gets even more vanillic and fruity and sweet with a focus on the cherry. So it's pretty much an extension from the opening, but I do feel there's quite a big difference, and that is that just a few minutes into it, the smoother, rounder and better the whole thing gets. So the heart of it is basically a smoother, rounder, fuller, and also a more fruity and sweet version of the opening. And the dry down, at least on my skin, and at least based on my very first few sprays and initial impression of it, it really feels like the whole thing sort of continues in the same direction as before. And the dry down is basically an extension of the heart of it, so everything in the dry down feels more juicy, more sweet, more vanillic, definitely more fruity with a more intense dose of cherry. I mean, there's like a hint of something that could be described like a soft dose of woodiness in the dry down, but I really feel this is mostly about the combination of the fruitiness of cherry with quite a big dose of vanilla. There's one difference though in the dry down, and that is that this starts to get a bit ambery warm. So you're getting a bit of ambery warmth and shine in the dry down, and that part together with the vanilla actually makes me think a bit of some of the other ones in the line. So Scandal Pour Homme Elixir is almost like they took the vanilla that you can find in the Eau de Toilette and in the Le Parfum. And I do feel the Elixir is going more in the direction of the OG Eau de Toilette, but there's a clear difference between these two. They removed that fantastic freshness that the OG has and removed that gorgeous caramel-ish kind of sweetness that the OG has and replaced it basically with the fruitiness and sweetness of cherry. Since it doesn't have that fantastic fresh and aromatic contrast of the OG, it doesn't feel as nuanced, and it definitely does not have the layers that the OG has. And the fruitiness and sweetness of the new Elixir definitely makes it quite different if you compare it to the Le Parfum. The Le Parfum, while not being a complex kind of scent, definitely feels more balanced with this prominent woody side and that gorgeous contrast that its aromatic side brings. If you compare the OG EDT to the new Elixir, the OG definitely feels more balanced, even though it does lean more towards something that is quite vanillic, caramelish and sweet. There's something in the Elixir, I don't know what it is, that in a way makes me think of a bit of what you can find in the Absolute, but I actually feel these two are different. And I also feel that the new Scandal Pour Homme Elixir is quite different if you compare it to Scandal Pour Homme Intense. Scandal Pour Homme Intense is very aromatic and it has that super light, almost transparent kind of leather to it, so these two are very different. So are there any similarities to the new Scandal Pour Homme Elixir and the new Armani Stronger With You Powerfully? So here are my thoughts on this. Armani Stronger With You Powerfully is basically a mix of that classic Armani Stronger With You DNA, together with the fruitiness and sweetness of cherry. That core Armani Stronger With You DNA is not what you can find in Scandal Pour Homme Elixir. What they do have in common though is that both of these are fragrances focused on the combination of vanilla and cherry. However, the vanilla in these two are definitely not the same, and I actually feel there's a bit of a difference in the cherry as well. So while you can definitely feel the cherry in both of them, there's a bit of a twist. So when I smell it now, it does feel like the scent of it has changed at least a little bit, but I'm gonna get to that in a minute. Let's first talk about the vibe of Scandal Pour Homme Elixir. I do feel this, which is quite intensely sweet and vanillic, goes into something that to my nose has more of a sexy vibe to it. I do feel cherry in fragrances pretty much always brings quite a sexy vibe to a scent. And to my nose, Scandal Pour Homme Elixir has a playful and sexy vibe to it. And I do feel the vibe of Elixir is quite different if you compare it to the more classy and elegant and also more sort of a balanced scent that Le Parfum has. So let's talk a bit about compliments and mass appeal. This is without a single doubt a compliment getting kind of scent. I mean, this is basically a big dose of sweetness, fruitiness with an incredibly mass appealing dose of vanilla. And if you ever want one of the other ones, then you know how incredibly mass appealing and likable this DNA is. So when it comes to performance, I really feel I gotta wear Scandal Pour Homme Elixir more. However, based on how it stays in the air around me from when I sprayed it up in the air, and based on how it comes off from my skin, I definitely feel this is pretty much on par with the other ones in the line, in that this is pretty strong. And that's a very good thing. I'm glad to see that this is not a new release that has been watered down. So again, this is just based on my first impressions of Scandal Pour Homme Elixir, but I'm gonna put the performance of this on par with the other ones and give it 8 for projection, and I'm gonna guess, based on how it sits on my skin, that the longevity is going to be pretty much similar like the other ones. So let's talk a bit about the usage. So like seasons and occasions, this is definitely something that has a bit of depth to it. It definitely has a prominent dose of sweetness to it, and it also has a bit of warmth. So I do feel this is something that leans a bit more towards spring, fall and winter, but much like Armani Stronger With You Powerfully with its sweetness and the cherry, this is definitely something I really look forward to wearing on summer nights. As for occasions, like I always say, wear whatever you want, whenever it makes you happy. However, this, at least to my nose, gives off this intensely playful, flirty and sexy vibe. So I do feel this is a kind of scent that leans more towards date nights and going out. But I mean, you can of course wear the Elixir to work or school as well. I don't think anyone is going to come up to you and say that you smell too sexy or anything. And if someone does that, I would say simply take that as a compliment. One thing about the usage though, this, at least on my skin, is quite an intense scent. So definitely do not spray this on for those occasions when you should be wearing something that is not too intense. So who is Jean Paul Gaultier Scandal Pour Homme Elixir for? Let's make this super simple. If you usually enjoy vanilla focused scents And if you know that you enjoy the scent of cherry, then this is for you. If you don't like vanilla, or if you do not enjoy the scent of cherry, then this is definitely not for you. And if you usually enjoy quite intensely sweet scents, then this might be for you. But if you absolutely dislike any kind of sweetness in fragrances, then this is most likely not for you. Now, I usually say this when it's the other way around, when a fragrance is not strong, but this is quite a strong one. So if you are someone who usually enjoys wearing quite soft and discreet scents, then this is most likely not for you. Because at least on my skin, this is quite strong. So let's talk a bit about some of the alternatives to Scandal Pour Homme Elixir. And I previously mentioned Armani Stronger With You Powerfully. I highly recommend to check out my Armani Stronger With You Powerfully first impression. I'm gonna link to it somewhere up here and in the description below. This is basically simplified in a nutshell, a combination of that Armani Stronger With You DNA together with the fruitiness and sweetness of cherry. So if you love that sort of a Stronger With You DNA, that scent, and if you love the scent of cherry, then Powerfully is definitely a great alternative. The OG Scandal Pour Homme is definitely a fantastic alternative. The Eau de Toilette is basically a combination of freshness, vanilla and sweetness, and the sweetness of the original is quite intensely caramelish. I know I say this every single time I talk about the OG, but the OG is absolutely fantastic, and the main reason I feel this is such a good one is because of the contrast between its freshness and its sweetness. So basically you're getting a big dose of sweet caramel, but you also get a really nice dose of clary sage, which brings the whole thing a fantastic contrast for what is pretty much the most balanced and definitely, at least to my nose, the classiest and most elegant take on the Scandal DNA. You have Scandal Le Parfum. You basically get a creamy smooth dose of sandalwood together with that Scandal Vanilla, and you also get a really nice dose of aromatic brightness and freshness for a very different kind of fruitiness together with quite an intense but smooth dose of woodiness. You have the Absolute. I highly recommend to check out my video on the Absolute, and I also did a Scandal Ranked, which I'm gonna link to somewhere up here and in the description below. So what are my final thoughts on Scandal Pour Homme Elixir based on my very first impressions of it? So here's the thing, as I've gone through everything about it in this video, this has changed a bit on my skin. So the final far dry down of Scandal Pour Homme Elixir actually shines the most, dominated by the cherry, and the cherry actually smells absolutely fantastic in the dry down. So if you end up trying Scandal Pour Homme Elixir, I highly recommend to truly wait for the dry down. I mean, the far dry down on my skin is intensely fruity and quite intensely sweet, dominated by that cherry, and the way the cherry, the scent of it, has developed throughout the opening into the far dry down is absolutely incredible. At least if you are a bit like me in that you do love the scent of cherry. I did mention this in my review of Armani Strong With You Powerfully. Cherry is one of those notes that when done right, I'm addicted to. But with that said, I absolutely do not feel Scandal Pour Homme Elixir is a complex scent in any way. I do not feel there's a lot of nuance or a lot of layers to this fragrance, but I also feel it smells absolutely fantastic for the simple thing it is. So there you go. Now I would absolutely love to know how you feel about Scandal Pour Homme Elixir. Do you like it? Do you absolutely hate it? Do you love it? Let me know in the comments. Please drop a like and subscribe if you're new to my channel, and make sure to check out my other videos over there.